Water. Earth. Fire. Whoa. Wait a minute. Give me a second. Maybe if I wiggle it around a little bit. Let me give that a try. Ha! See, fire and air. By my powers combined, this is a review of Avatar Legends. If you're into Kickstarter as much as I am, you've probably heard of this game, Avatar Legends. It made headlines after a record-breaking campaign, accumulating or raising over $9.5 million. That's a lot of money for a Kickstarter campaign, by the way. With that being said, I would like to say that backing anything on Kickstarter comes with risk. Will the product even come out? Will it come in the way that it's been promised? Or will they hold it for ransom, asking for more money because of the ever-growing market and economy? I received my book and all of its stretch goals in not the best condition. And so I would actually like to thank Magpie Games for actually sending me another copy. And of course, as you can see, I actually got a special edition copy, which is what I backed on Kickstarter. So thank you so much again for kind of rectifying an error in shipping and giving me another book in as better of a condition. They certainly did not have to do so, and so I'm very thankful that they did. So what is Avatar Legends? Well, simply put, it is the official Avatar, The Last Airbender, Korra, The Legend of Korra role-playing game. With it, you can play in different eras representing different avatars, such as Kyoshi, Roku, Aang, and Korra. Not only that, Avatar Legends is a Powered by the Apocalypse Engine game. If you've been following this channel, over the past couple of months, I've been reviewing a lot of different Powered by the Apocalypse Engine games. We've done Monster of the Week, Masks, and Root. And I've done it in that order because, one, those are the actual books that I've had interest in, but there's also been an ever-growing evolution within those games of features that have been added or mechanics and things like that. And so we're going to see the culmination of all of those things in this book. So what exactly is new in Avatar Legends? Well, first off, as you can clearly see, this is not an A4 book. This is actually a full-sized book. And there's actually a reason for that. This book is packed with a ton of information. If you're a fan of all things Avatar, then you're certainly going to love this. But are you going to want to play it? Well, let's crack open the book and find out. So here we have Avatar Legends, and of course, as I've already mentioned, this is the special edition cover. Now I'm actually going to bring my other book and have a side-by-side comparison of the front and the back. This is obviously the Aang special edition cover, but on the opposite side, or rather on the back, you get the Korra. Now you could either have this flipped around where Korra is on the front and Aang is on the back, or you can have Aang on the front with Korra on the back. So there you go. I will say the production of this book is hands down one of my favorite aspects of this product. A lot of people have worked on this. A lot of love and care has gone into this book, as you can see in the credits all the way on the left. Like with many other Powered by the Apocalypse Engine games, character creation is an easy process, but one that is best done with the other players in your gaming group. All you really need is the playbook, which serves as a class or archetype for your character. This time around, we have 10 different playbooks to play around with. We have the Adamant, a zealous advocate with a heart of gold and a diamond hard will, ready to do what it takes to fix the world. The Idealist, a survivor of some terrible harm, now struggling to maintain hope and a belief in the good of the world and others. The Bold, a charming adventurer who knows they're greater than others assume, striving to show their worth. The pillar, a proficient leader coming from their own special team, but now devoted to this new group of companions, trying to help the others to cohere. The guardian, a protector and defender devoted to others, perhaps to their own detriment. They have adopted one of their companions as their ward. The prodigy, an extraordinarily capable practitioner of their training, but that tends to make them a bit too arrogant and isolated. The hammer, a fighter looking to solve problems by smashing them, even when that might not be the right solution. The rogue, a vagabond who has struggled to survive. They've never felt they belonged, and they've become a rebel and troublemaker to make it. The icon, a chosen figure of an ancient tradition expected to carry forward the duties of their role regardless of what they want. And the successor, the inheritor of a massively powerful legacy, known all over with its own dark history. I actually like this group of playbooks, more so than any other Powered by the Apocalypse Engine game I've come across thus far. They are really a mix of combat-heavy to more socially inclined archetypes. There is something for everyone, which is good, and kind of multiples of those. Like, there are multiple fighters, there are multiple social people, which is really good if you have two people who are more inclined to the same nature, which haven't really seen all too often. And remember, in these types of games, you can only pick one of those playbooks for the entire group. You can't double up. So once you actually pick a playbook, you go through it, marking each option as you come across it. In addition to specific playbook moves, each archetype has something wholly unique to them in a narrative and mechanical sense. For example, the Adamant here has the Lodestar. So there's only one person you often let past your emotional walls. Name your Lodestar. That's a PC that you choose. You can shift your Lodestar to someone new when they guide and comfort you and you open up to them, or when you guide and comfort them and they open up to you. If you do choose to shift your Lodestar, clear a condition. You can also choose to shut someone vulnerable to harsh words or icy silence. When your Lodestar shifts your balance or calls you out, you cannot resist it. Treat an NPC Lodestar calling you out as if you rolled a 10 plus and a PC Lodestar calling you out as if they rolled a 10 plus. You can consult your Lodestar for advice or on a problem, and they give you some sort of a benefit to that as well. Another example is the hammer, which has bringing them down, and this effectively grants them an adversary, which is really cool. At a certain point, you're going to collaborate with other players to determine how the group all came together and what your goals are going to be for this campaign. There are certain themes to choose from, such as transport such and such to this location or protect this place from a person, thing, or idea. And of course, you're going to resolve your connections that way as well, where you're going to name a PC as a connection to your background or something along those lines. The biggest change by far to characters in general is their principle. Each playbook has a principle. For example, the hammer here has force versus care. Other characters, both NPCs and PCs, can influence the direction of this balance. Stray too far to one side and you become unbalanced and you can actually suffer conditions. I would compare this to Mask's influence system, where other characters can change your stats or exert their influence over you for some mechanical benefit. But it's less awkward in Avatar Legends because it doesn't really interfere with your actual stats and the probability of success versus misses. Another major change to character creation kind of deals with bending. There are no bending quote-unquote moves in Avatar Legends. Instead, you get to come up with a way that, let's say, earthbending would be helpful in making such and such a move, and it just happens. There are 6 different trainings to choose from. So we have your typical water bending, earth bending, fire bending, air bending, and then you also get trainings in weapons and technology, which is very interesting, but also makes sense. I mean, Sokka would have been a weapons master, Asami would have been a technology master. Each training has different techniques that can be used in combat in other situations, but we'll kind of get to that in a little bit. What I will say here is that each of the bendings also has advanced forms. For example, water bending has access to blood bending. Earth bending has access to lava bending and such and such. Powered by the Apocalypse engine, game mechanics are standard across the board. The player says they are going to do something, it either happens or triggers a move. There are 8 basic moves this time around. You have things like assess a situation. When you assess a situation, roll with creativity. On a 7 through 9, ask 1 question. On a 10 plus, ask 2. Take +1 ongoing when acting on those answers. You have guide and comfort. When you try to honestly guide and comfort another person, roll with harmony. On a hit, they choose 1. On a 10 plus, if they embrace your guidance and comfort, you may also shift their balance. We have intimidate. When you intimidate an NPC into backing off or giving in, roll with passion. On a hit, they choose 1. On a 10 plus, first you pick 1 they cannot choose. And there's a list of 4. Plead. When you plead with an NPC who cares what you think for help, support, or action, roll with harmony. On a 7 through 9, they need something more, evidence that this is the right course, guidance in making the right choices, or resources to aid them before they act. The GM tells you what they need. On a 10 plus, they act now and do their best until the situation changes. We have push your luck. When you push your luck in a risky situation, say what you want to do and roll with passion. On a hit, you do it, but it costs you to scrape by. The GM tells you what it costs you. On a 10 plus, your boldness pays off despite the cost. The GM tells you what other lucky opportunity falls in your lap. We have rely on your skills and training. When you rely on your skills and training to overcome an obstacle, gain new insight, or perform a familiar custom, roll with focus. On a hit, you do it. On a 7 through 9, you do it imperfectly. The GM tells you how your approach might lead to unexpected consequences. Accept those consequences or mark 1 fatigue. We have trick. When you trick an NPC, roll with creativity. On a hit, they fall for it and do what you want for the moment. On a 7 through 9, pick 1. On a 10 plus, pick 2. And there's only 3 here. And then we have help. When you take appropriate action to help a companion, mark 1 fatigue to give them a +1 to their roll after the roll. You cannot help in combat exchange in this way. In addition, players have access to balance moves. These allow you to make moves concerning a PC's balance, whether it's to shift it one way or another, or even deny when someone wants to shift your character's balance. So we have things like live up to your principle. When you take action in accordance with the values of a principle, mark 1 fatigue to roll with that principle instead of whatever stat you would normally roll. We have call someone out. When you openly call on someone to live up to their principle, shift your balance away from center, then name and roll with their principle. On a hit, they are called to act as you say. They must either do it or mark a condition. On a 7 through 9, they challenge your view of the world in turn. Mark 1 fatigue, or they shift your balance as they choose. On a miss, they can demand you act in accordance with one of your principles instead. Mark a condition or act as they request. We have deny a call out. When you deny an NPC calling on you to live up to your principle, roll with that principle. On a hit, act as they say or mark 1 fatigue. On a 10 plus, their words hit hard. You must also shift your balance towards the called on principle. On a miss, you stand strong. Clear a condition, clear 1 fatigue, or shift your balance, your choice. We have resist shifting your balance. When you resist an NPC shifting your balance, roll. On a hit, you maintain your current balance in spite of their words or deeds. On a 10 plus, choose 2. On a 7 through 9, choose 1. On a miss, they know just what to say to throw you off balance. Mark a condition and the GM shifts your balance twice. And then we have lose your balance. If your balance shifts past the end of the track, you lose your balance. You obsess over that principle to a degree that's not healthy for you or anyone around you. Choose one of the following. Give in or submit to your opposition. Lose control of yourself in a destructive and harmful way. Or take an extreme action in line with the principle, then flee. Afterwards, when you've had some time to recover and recenter yourself, shift your center 1 step towards the principle you exceeded and clear all conditions and fatigue. Reset your balance to your new center. Combat has the biggest change in a Powered by the Apocalypse Engine game when it comes to moves. It's not as freeform as most other games where the GM puts the scope on a character, allows them to make a move, and do an exchange that way. This time around, there's actually an initiative, sort of. So when initiating a combat, the first thing you do is, well, the GM actually gets to choose an approach, and there are 3 different approaches to choose from. You have defend and maneuver. So you are blocking incoming strikes with a strong guard, tiring out your opponent, shifting position, knocking down blasts of fire or air sent at you without giving up ground, but seizing opportunities to change your standing or retreat. You have advance and attack. You are throwing punches, fireballs, water whips, etc. at your opponents, pressing them and trying to inflict harm, sticking close to your foes to ensure you can strike at them. And then you have evade and observe. You are slipping around blows, twisting just out of reach of your enemy, all the while taking in your opponent, watching them, learning about how they fight, and perhaps even exchanging verbal barbs. Then, the players get to choose an approach, and I believe they do this secretly, or rather, the GM does their approach secretly. The players don't have to keep it secret. The GM reveals what they chose for each NPC in the encounter. And then you resolve each approach. So resolve the approach in order, starting with defend and maneuver, followed by advance and attack, and last, followed by evade and observe. When resolving each approach, PCs who chose that approach roll the stance move to see how many techniques they may use. NPCs use techniques equal to 1 plus their current balance as it stands specifically at the start of that approach. PCs choose their techniques first, and then the NPCs choose their techniques to use. All techniques within an approach are functionally resolved simultaneously, so you won't just knock someone out getting rid of their attack, so to say. If anyone is taken out or loses their balance, they don't suffer those consequences yet, even if their approach hasn't been resolved yet. The same goes for statuses. The effect of the status doesn't kick in until the exchange ends. And the last step is you resolve being taken out or losing your balance. In addition to that, there are other moves that players use that are separate from your basic moves. These are called techniques, and each approach has its own set of basic techniques granted to everyone. Remember when I briefly mentioned characters choosing a training during character creation? Well, those trainings each have different techniques to use in combat. And this is actually listed as an appendix at the very back of the book. So you have universal techniques like attack, weakness, charge, duck, and twist. You have group techniques. But then you get into like your water bending techniques, earth bending techniques, fire bending techniques, air bending techniques, weapons techniques, and technology techniques. And some of these techniques are actually advanced. So you'll actually have to go out in the world and find a teacher to teach that to your character. So in order to knock someone out, you have to get rid of your opponent's fatigue or overcome that exchange's winning condition. Similarly, PCs can get knocked out if they lose their balance or accrue all 5 conditions. By the way, whenever you run out of fatigue yourself and you're required to lose more, you instead mark that many conditions. Combat is very in-depth. It's like they're trying to blend in the narrative style combat that we've seen in Monster of the Week and Masks and Root and a more tactical style of combat. On paper, I really like this a lot, but I can see this having a rather steep learning curve for those of us who are more inclined for the traditional style of tactical combat in role-playing games. It gets even more complicated though, because now you have to worry about master techniques versus not master techniques, and for the latter, you actually have to roll to see if you are even successful with that. And once you're successful, you kind of go up this tier where you eventually get to master techniques and you don't even have to make rolls to even become successful at it. Avatar Legends is by far my most favorite combat system of all Powered by the Apocalypse Engine games that aren't solo. In terms of GM information, how to be a good GM and how to run the game, There's quite a lot of information to unpack here, but it's all standard. You've still got your how to frame a scene section and soft versus hard GM moves. Essentially, soft moves allow the PCs to react to incoming danger, whereas hard moves don't, whether it's because they failed to react to a soft move or because of a miss. I do like the included GM moves list as it keeps things structured, and there are examples of each, move on the list. One thing that I am really thankful for is the inclusion of actual statted NPCs. These are as generic as town guards and as complex as one of the avatars. And some of the more complex characters that you have are Avatar Kyoshi, Roku, General Iroh, Avatar Aang, and Korra. And for those more complex characters, you're going to have their drive and little tidbits on how to play as that character and when to bring that character in, as well as their techniques. One thing I will say, in addition to having way more fatigue than your standard PC characters, they do have more conditions available to them than the standard 5. My favorite chapter by far is Chapter 2, The World of Avatar. It is here where you get the whole history and lore of the Avatar universe. You get descriptions of the 4 different nations and important locations within each. You get description of the 5 different eras with notable events leading up to that and inside of that era. So you have the Kyoshi era, the Roku era, the 100-Year War era, the Aang era, and the Korra era. The point is, this is a very involved chapter. I feel like this whole chapter could have been a separate, Art of Avatar or the Lore of Avatar book without all the RPG elements, and it would still be just as successful. Something to also make note of, when they actually go through the different eras, there are going to be significant themes with GM specific moves for that era, which is pretty cool. And there's also different little important events that happen when those eras, but also quest starters in a way. There is a sample adventure called The Vanishing Act that can be run as a one-shot, but it should be worth mentioning that written powered by the Apocalypse Engine adventures are different from your typical game in that they are written to encompass many different possible paths. You get details on notable NPCs, a summary of the plot, which translates into what happened before the PCs became involved, as well as some possibilities. The adventure tasks PCs with finding out who, if anyone, kidnapped Rose. The circus is also in town and may or may not have anything to do with it. It's a big whodunit mystery with many suspects, of which you'll have to decide who the culprit is. You can choose ahead of time, but the writers mentioned the possibility of having the players dictate who the kidnapper is through play. There is also some advice on translating the adventure to different eras. I also like that a lot of the NPCs that you'll come across are also statted here, which you can also pull into your own games if you so wish, just rename them. Since we have a full-size book, I thought it'd be worth going over the layout and overall presentation of the book. It goes without saying that I have the special edition on cover, and it looks gorgeous. Actually, just about everything in this book is gorgeous. Most of the artwork are stills from the cartoons, which isn't negative in my book at all. It evokes the writing very well. However, the original artwork at the chapter beginnings are my favorite by far. The art team has done a fantastic job consistently across the board. Although my only complaint is that not all stills from the cartoon are created equally. You can definitely tell the Last Airbender stills from the Korra. The Last Airbender kind of has some, blurriness to it. You can really tell the age of the stills that they pulled from. Unfortunately, this book also follows a very similar flaw to every other Powered by the Apocalypse Engine game that I've come across thus far, and that is how wordy everything is. For example, when you're taking a look at the different moves, it just goes on and on. Like, how much in depth do you need to explain a simple process? Now, I will say that there are some moves that do require a little bit more explanation just because of how involved they are, but I don't think everything needs to be as wordy as it is. And this is something that is kind of consistent in every Powered by the Apocalypse Engine game. If I was a newcomer to role-playing, I would feel very intimidated by this. But I do really appreciate that important information and keywords are in bold. Avatar Legends does a fantastic job of translating the Avatar universe into a role-playing game. This is one of those properties where I am very thankful that they did not bother translating into 5th edition, because it would not have worked well at all in that system. Avatar does its best when it is left up to the machinations of its players and the GM. Combat is interesting and fresh. I like that there is structure to it. It's organized instead of just focusing on a single player and having a quick back and forth between the opponent and that player. This book can be intimidating for newcomers, both for players and the GM. And I think that's really a downside. I feel pretty confident in saying that I can run it because I have some experience in running Powered by the Apocalypse Engine games. But even then, there are new features here to keep track of, and that can be a daunting task. You're either going to be a die-hard enough fan of Avatar to grit your way through all of the intricate rules, or you're going to have enough experience in Powered by the Apocalypse Engine games to just take a look at the new features and know where to go from there. Would I ever run this for my gaming group? No. And there's actually a very simple and strange reason for that. Avatar Legends has done something that rarely happens with other books when I sit down and read them and review. It makes me want to actually be the player. I will admit, I am not nearly big enough of a fan of Avatar to be a GM and create my own scenarios or campaign and run them for a group of players. Could I do it? Certainly. But for the first time in a very long while, a book has affected me in such a way that that gets me excited enough to just want to be a player and just engross myself in this lore-rich universe and just dive right in. That's going to do it for this video. Feel free to leave a comment down below, give this video a huge thumbs up to support this series, and I will see you guys in the next video.